Well, this is weird. I need a table real quick, though, because I need to set my things down. That's good. Oh, top corner. Is this good? Okay. I didn't ask for permission to do this, so. Well, I got to set my water down, my notes, my little clicker. So, all right. Well, that was obviously some real good shit to start the day. Whether it was the Callaways, getting everybody vulnerable to start. There's a lot of hands that went up. A lot of hands. And Trey and Vinny, talking about loving each other, telling the people that you love them. It's sometimes it's easier said than done. Whether it's we don't want to get vulnerable, right? We don't want to let our guard down. And one of the things, though, that when they were talking, this wasn't planned, by the way, but one of the things when they were talking about, who here has a hard problem loving yourself? Yeah. A lot of hands went up. Now, the reason I asked that, obviously you guys see that I'm talking about goals. So, for those of you that were at the meetup last fall, I guess it was, I was asked to give a presentation on goals and strategies and things like that. And if I'm being honest with you guys, I asked Jenna and Brian and everybody who said, hey, you want to do that? Well, actually, it was Keith Jr. who called me. And he said, hey, you want to give a presentation on goals and strategies? I said, not sure how to give a presentation on something I don't really do. And that was the honest truth. Now, I will say, since then, I've gotten a little bit more intentional with my goal setting and strategizing. It has helped. It has helped. But I just want to go ahead and set the record straight. I'm no expert on this topic, right? And you guys touched on the imposter syndrome. I can guarantee you that every single person who's going to be up on this stage the rest of today, every person who's going to speak tomorrow at the circle, every person who's having conversations or answering questions or giving advice, whatever it may be, has that little feeling of imposter syndrome. Now, the reason that I believe that imposter syndrome exists is because you don't really have a lot of clarity on what it is you're trying to accomplish. And the more that you can gain that clarity, that you can build that out and get more clear with yourself, the more that you radiate that to the people around you. And when you do that, as leaders, which I'm pretty sure the majority of people sitting in this room are leaders in some capacity, as a leader, the more clarity that you have within yourself, the more clarity that you can provide to the people around you that you're responsible for leading, the less imposter syndrome you actually have. So today, what I'm going to talk about is only going to be stuff that I actually have experience in doing. Because the last thing I want to do is feed you guys a lot of crap that just sounds good, or that I heard it in a video, or read it in a book, or some crap like that, there's a lot of people out there that's all they do, regurgitate information. So, I will give credit to Mr. Brian Beckner. I was having a conversation with him last night. He was asking, aren't you speaking tomorrow or whatnot? I was like, yeah, and I said, it's either going to go really good, or it's going to be a complete shit show. Not really sure. We'll see what happens. And he told me, he said, in his past life, in the chiropractic world and consulting and things like that, he gave a lot of presentations, a lot of speeches, a lot of keynotes and things like that. And one of his coaches had told him, he said, the only reason that you should feel nervous about giving any sort of a presentation to individuals is if you're doing it for yourself. And it kind of clicked. And I'm like, it's not really for me, right? You guys are obviously here to have conversations, to take away little nuggets and things like that. So the disclaimer that I have here is if you don't like what I'm about to say, sorry. There's going to be people who don't like what I have to say. And I believe Brian coined it at the last retreat that I'm known as a real good friend, not a feel-good friend. So I will do my best to own up to that reputation as we dive into a little bit about goal setting and the experiences that I've had in doing so. So let's see if this thing works. Ha! All right. Cool. So by a show of hands, who is a master at goal setting? Who writes them down? They look at them every day. They drill them down, drill them into their people, their team, themselves, their spouses, their kids, whatever it is. Who is a master at goal setting? Anybody? We got one. Two. All right, so I need you two to do me a favor. Take lots of notes on what I do wrong in this presentation, okay? Because I am not. You didn't see me raise my hand. Now, who has no idea what goal setting is and how to use goals and how to actually use them to propel yourself forward and things like that? Anybody have no idea? Doesn't do it at all? All right, I'm a monkey. Cool. Well, you take some notes too, because I think I might be able to help a little bit, but that's all I got for you. Now, I would assume that the rest of you guys know what they are and sometimes use them, right? Would that be fair to say? We know what goal setting is. We kind of do it. We set some targets. We set some projections, whatever it may be. But nonetheless, we're not really that great. We all are my people, because that's what I do. I know what they are. I use them here and there. But I can say that the more that I do use them, the more clear that I am with myself, the more clear that I am with the team, and truthfully, the less stressful life tends to be, because it just gives you that security that you know what you're doing. So, as we get into this, we want to say that by goal setting, we want to make sure that you take your time and prioritize and execute exactly what it is you're wanting to do. So, you have to figure out what exactly is important. Because if you have no idea what the target is, what the objective is, you really don't know what you're walking towards, right? And so as you do that, you start using a lot of energy on a daily basis. And people around you feel that. They feel you getting tired. They feel you getting short. They feel you getting a little edgy and things like that, because you are using all your energy at something that you have no idea how to be clear on. And so a little saying that I heard recently that I am regurgitating here because I thought it hit well is widespread energy is energy wasted, right? Because we only have so much energy we're given on a daily basis. And if we're using that energy to try and just aimlessly walk towards what we think is what we're trying to achieve, well, you're going to just be wasting your energy. And the people that depend on you, they count on that energy. As leaders, the people who depend on us count on our energy more than we realize. And we only have so much to give. And what I mean by all that is when I structure my day, right? My day, I'm a very routinistic person. If anybody who knows me knows that if things go a little out of whack, it's not really my cup of tea. I like things to go how they're supposed to. But the way I try to structure my day is in the morning I have my time. Right, that's my time for my devotional. I read a little bit. I get my life together. Get to the gym and do everything like that. That energy is the only energy that I actually get from me for that day. Because the rest of the day, as we all know, you're putting out fires. It's just how it goes. And so making sure that I have a very clear plan for what my day is, how it's going to tentatively go, and then knowing that the energy that I need for myself has already been expelled at the beginning of the day. Because when I show up to the rest of my team, to my clients, to my vendors, to my peers, to my wife, whatever it may be, that I can show up the best version of myself. Doesn't mean I'm perfect, because that morning may have taken a lot more energy than what I intended for it to. But you only have so much to give. And so the more that you can get that clarity, the more that you can prioritize what you're planning to use your energy for in any given time, the more that you're going to be able to show up better for the people that need you. We've all heard the saying, your obsessions become your possessions. So as we dial those things in, we dial those plans, those goals, those targets, whatever it may be, as we dial those in, they start to happen, right? For me, anybody who follows me on social media, I spend a lot of time out on the lake in the summertime. And when I moved to Charlotte, that was one of my things. That was one of the reasons I moved there, is because I've always grown up around water. I love boating. It brings me peace and relaxation. I get out there and all the problems go away. I think there's been one time that Kelsey and I have been out on the lake that the day got cut short because I apparently didn't know how to leave my problems at the shore. So, but what it was is every day I was driving over the bridges of the lake and I said, man, one day I'm going to have a boat out there. One day I'm going to be one of those guys cruising around with friends, family, whatever it may be, and just having a great time out on the lake. And to some people, you guys might be thinking, okay, who gives a shit about going out on the lake? Nobody cares. Well, to me, I do, right? That's something that I was obsessed with achieving, not for a materialistic accomplishment, but because it was something that brings me joy, it brings me peace, it brings me back great memories from my family growing up as a kid, and I wanted to achieve it. And it took 7, 8 years to actually make that come true. But I can tell you right now, once it happened, once we put that boat in the water for the first time back in 2018, once we were cruising around having a beverage, and or 3, and heading to dinner or whatever it was out on the lake, it was worth every bit of it. But I had to become wildly obsessed with what I was trying to achieve in my own life. Right? And now that's an example of a, personally, just a kind of a selfish goal, because this doesn't really benefit many other people. And that's okay. You can have goals that motivate you. You can have targets that motivate you, that bring you happiness, fulfillment, satisfaction, whatever it may be. Because it goes back to what I was saying. If you're not doing things to actually improve your own life, you're not going to be able to show up as the best version of yourself to the people who need you. So be selfish. In order to be selfless, you have to start with being selfish. Take care of yourself, dial in your goals, know exactly what it is that you're trying to aim for. So, kind of that leads into creating clarity. This is shifting into a little bit more of a leadership type of a conversation, right? Because, like I was talking about earlier, if you don't have clarity on what it is that you're showing up for every day at work, with your team, with your clients, whatever it may be, and you're not clear on that, you have no direction. And when you have no direction, people don't actually believe in you, believe it or not. And so, the more clear that you get on what goals that you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to accomplish, that's going to create that pathway to achievement, right? And there's going to be things that you realize that you need to start doing. There's going to be things that you realize you need to stop doing. And then there's going to be things that you need to just look at the data and figure out what it's telling you, right? So for an example of something that, what needs to start, I can tell you right now, sales and being a salesman and following up and all that crap that goes into sales has not ever been a strong suit of mine. I'm sure I'm going to got an amen coming over here. So last fall, when Kelsey joined the company full time, and she was helping with some of our sales pipeline. Yeah, this girl, she's never done business. She's been a nurse and a badass wife, but never done business before. But she joined the company, and she's looking at, we use Basecamp, as you guys all know, for everything. It's like our lifeline for our company. But she was looking through the Basecamp list of all of our sales stuff, and she says, Daniel, she said, how does this work? I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, where's all your proposals and your this and your that? And I'm like, well, it's right here in the to-do, and then once we're done, we check it off, and if they want us to do the job, then they call us. And she said, okay, we're going to need to change this up a little bit. So she creates this entire pipeline of, our sales flow, right? Everybody has probably CRMs and things like that. Well, again, my strong suit is operations, not sales. So I did not think about having a sales pipeline and a whole flow and all that mumbo jumbo. So she creates this thing, and then she's like, all right, we have to start actually moving this down the pipeline, because it's going to provide clarity on where this job is at, where this project is at in the process. And so that's just one example, one very small example, but very, very important example of what we had to start doing in order to provide clarity for our goals. Because now, at a very quick glance, we can pull up one program, and we can scroll right through our pipeline and see who has what on their to-do list, who's in the follow-up phase, who's on hold, what's been invoiced, what's been scheduled, so on and so forth. And I know to a lot of you guys that's a very basic concept, and you're like, how in the hell have you survived this many years without that? I don't know, but we figured it out, so that's that. But that's something that we started, and it provided a lot of clarity and made our life just a lot easier. And then something that we need to stop, right? As somebody who loves systems and processes and steps for everything and following a certain pattern and a certain plan and expectations, there was a lot of things that I had put in place over the years that just needed to stop. They were pointless, right? They were things that I was having people check boxes for because at one time back in 2018, someone forgot something and I said, we have a new process, so check this box. So there are things that you have to stop because you're taking too much energy from your team, right? They only have so much energy they can expel too. And if you're requiring them to do 100,000 different things, when you could whittle that down to 10,000 things, because let's be honest, we're all very needy leaders. We want our team to do everything. So if you can whittle that down and save some of their energy, imagine how much more they're going to be able to accomplish. how much happier they're going to be able to be. Because they know exactly what they need to do to achieve the goals that you've set out for them, or perhaps the goals that they've set out for themselves. Now, the last point here is, what does the data show? So this year, well, last year, I think we technically started it. We started using just some basic spreadsheets to track our sales metrics by month, by quarter, for the year, so on and so forth. Going into this year, bless you. Going into this year, we said, okay, we have some pretty lofty goals that we want to achieve. And we said, how are we going to do this? Well, if you guys have been around TCS for long enough, you guys know that there's the sales tracker, right? There's the spreadsheet that you can kind of put in and see what your projections are and go that route. We've made a modified version of that for ourselves. But nonetheless, we started collecting all the data last year, like just a shit ton of data. And going into this year, I started saying, okay, well, if we want to do, I think our goal was $4 million in revenue this year. And I looked at all the estimates that we put out last year, and I said, okay, well, we put out X amount of estimates, we got this many accepted. So we had the data to know exactly, like, we put out this money, we got this many approved. But then the other caveat to that was, well, how many dollars in estimates did we put out, and how many dollars in invoices did we send? Because those aren't necessarily the same. Just because you put out, $100,000 estimates every day doesn't mean that's what you're going to get accepted every day. So we have these two separate metrics that we're tracking that. And so as every week I'm updating, how many estimates have we put out, how many have we got accepted, what's our projections based off of our rates, from the previous year, because that's all you can really do is go off the data and the projections. And so I have that goal sheet over here. Then about a month or two ago, I guess it was, probably about May. As many of you guys probably had, it's been a pretty slow start to the year, or a weird start to the year, and you're kind of like, what the heck's going on? I'm getting weird estimates accepted that I wasn't really planning on, jobs, projects, whatever it may be. And I'm like, all right, I got to know what the heck's coming, right? So then I just made a completely separate spreadsheet based off of invoices we already sent, total revenue achieved, and then invoice or estimates that we have accepted in the pipeline. Two completely separate spreadsheets. They don't talk to each other, completely different data that I'm looking at and everything. I ran the numbers actually last week, and right now for us, we're looking to be around a 30% growth for this year. And I was looking at it, and I'm like, man, so right now, by the end of, I think, like July, we should be around $1.8 million in revenue. Both of the spreadsheets, based off of the data that I put in, were within $4,000 of each other on $1.8 million. That's something that I actually kind of looked at, and I was like, holy shit, this stuff actually works, right? The data actually is true. And so I showed that to the team, and I say, guys, like, this is why we ask you guys to record everything. This is why we're so big on the numbers. The numbers don't lie. And so the more that you have that data, in whatever capacity it may be, right? I know that there are individuals in this room that is using way more sophisticated softwares than a Google Sheets document, that's very plain and actually very confusing to look at. But nonetheless, you guys have it, so share it, right? Share the data, use the data, make the decisions based on the data. So now, this is kind of where I start getting into the close of my little chat here on goals. The goal topic, or the topic that they asked me to say was, it's your goal to own, or what was it, Jenna? It's your goal to achieve. What I started talking about earlier, the imposter syndrome, difficulty in loving yourself, difficulty in having good team members that want to stick around and they trust you and believe in you, difficulty recruiting new team members. There's a good reason. It's because you don't actually own what it is you're trying to achieve. It sounds good. You see it on social media. You see your peers out doing whatever it is that they're doing that you envy or whatever it might be. But you don't actually have anything dialed in that you own because you're not that committed to it. And I can say right now, I've been there. I've done that. Beginning of this year, along with most of you guys, as I said a second ago, it was a challenging year. There was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of just kind of weirdness. But I look back on it, I've been taught at one point, if things are starting to go wrong, look at your last 90 days and see what you have or haven't been doing. What I haven't been doing is actually owning my shit. What I haven't been doing is putting in the time with my team. What I haven't been doing is putting in the time for follow-ups, for talking with clients, building and establishing and nurturing relationships. Haven't been doing it because I wasn't really clear on what it is I was trying to do. And I think we can all relate to the fact that as we're growing our businesses, as we're growing our teams, we go through different sections and stages of leadership. As Jenna likes to say, there's levels to this shit. And there are levels that we all have to accomplish and achieve day in and day out. But every time we get to a new level, we have a new battle to face. And so the more that you're able to be very clear on what that battle is, for me this year, it was letting go of a lot of the day-to-day sales things. I know I said earlier that I'm not a sales guy, but I've been our only sales guy. So don't really know how we got where we're at, but we're doing it. So letting go of a lot of that stuff and empowering our team members, but also still being responsible for the outcomes, right? That's how leadership works. When it all goes good, you didn't have anything to do with it. When it all goes bad, it was all your fault. That's how it goes. But I wasn't really clear on what I was trying to achieve, what I was trying to accomplish. And so you have to make sure that on a daily basis, you are waking up with a specific mission, goal, and purpose, right? Your mission and goal are very similar, okay? Those could be interchanged, whatever it may be. But you have to wake up with that, and you have to be intentional about your time putting into it. Because the more that you do that, the more you get clarity on what you're trying to achieve. The more you get clarity on what you're trying to achieve, the better the results that you're going to get. And a couple years ago, we had a theme in our company. It was called Bigger Than Yourself. And it was an eye-opener for me that year because that was the first year that I really had team members doing the stuff day in and day out. Where if I was at an event like this for a few days, things were still happening. And I very, very quickly realized that if I don't grow something bigger than myself, I am what our friend John Maxwell calls the leadership lid. I'm the one capping everything. So there's no wonder that we didn't have good employee retention. There's no wonder that I had a lot of just kind of aimless days where I'm like, well, I think I was busy. I think I got something done. I felt productive, but I don't really know what I accomplished. And so you have to make sure that those targets, that those goals are bigger than yourself. As it says right here, your goals are only as good as your actions. And so if your actions aren't matching your words, your plans, your goals, your targets, you're just feeding everybody a line of crap. And eventually they're going to figure you out. And if I'm being honest, that's probably why we had high turnover for a long time. Because people realize that Daniel will show up and work hard. Daniel's got a lot of expectations, a lot of high standards, a lot of requirements. But my actions every day weren't exactly matching them, right? I wasn't building myself to be the best version of me, to be the best version for them. And so the more that you do that, the more that you really get that dialed in and you figure out what it is that you need to aim for day in and day out, right? There's a lot of different strategies out there to keep yourself organized, to keep yourself on track, but you want to get that dialed in because the people know it. The people that count on you know exactly what it is that you're showing up to do every day. And I've told this to a lot of people in different conversations, and not to be negative here, but the truth is, the world that we live and operate in doesn't actually give a shit about us. It just doesn't. So if you don't take the initiative to give a shit about yourself, your team, your family, your clients, your vendors, your contractors, even your competitors, as Trey was talking about earlier, love people, right? It's not that hard. It doesn't cost anything to give somebody a smile. It doesn't cost anything to give someone a little piece of advice or to make a connection and help make their life a little bit easier. So if you don't start to actually give a crap about yourself, your team, the people that are in your life that count on you, no one else will. And so if you want to make a difference in the world, if you want to make a difference in the lives around you, you have to dial that in. You have to be intentional with your conversations, intentional with your time, intentional with your education. You have to show up as a leader. The more you show up as a leader, the more people are going to buy into what you're trying to recruit them to do. And I know every person in this room has pretty lofty goals, right? So dial that in, set your targets, aim to achieve them, do something that matters, and make sure it's bigger than yourself. I believe that's all I got.